So yeah, this is a bit of an unusual one. I'm doing it on my phone in my room because I don't seem to be able to get access to Wi-Fi downstairs. And there we go. We keep going. We carry on. So the last lesson that we did was about human intervention and human effort. So we have a discussion by Rabbi Bachya on what emunah is, what it consists of, and why, if we really have emunah that God is providing everything we need daily, then why do we need to show up? Why do we need to even bother to go to work at night? Why don't we just stay in our beds and wait for it to download? And then also he talks about the two different types of emunah. The one is that suggesting that the pasuk in the Devarim, talking about in all that you do, suggesting man's work and effort, is that man's sustenance is determined between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, which is why we daven so hard during those days, because we're sort of downloading everything, all the blessings, trying to appear at our best and, dress for the job that you want, really present our best selves to God and say, yes, we're going to do so many good things with the blessings that you give us, in the hope that in Rosh Hashanah it's going to be written down for the rest of the year. So in that case, if it's written down for the rest of the year, then why do we bother showing up the rest of the year? We'll just be like, okay, done and dusted, 10 days, all done. And now I can just relax and sit on a beach. So the one mentality is that the one perception is that God does give us everything between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. But in another place, the Talmud states man is judged every day. And that's in the tractate Rosh Hashanah. So when we went through it, we came to understand that, yes, the blessing is downloaded in its entirety between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. But in each day, we have to make that connection with the blessing so that it can download to us and that we don't block it and we don't block ourselves from receiving it. So the analogy was, as the divine, there are four different worlds. That's Atzilut. You studied, I think, Kabbalah a little bit, Ariella, so you might be familiar with these terms. There are four worlds. When God created the world, he sort of shrunk himself, so to speak, and his great expansion was channeled down to the world's sort of false mirror illusion, hall of mirrors world that we live in, through four separate shrinkings of his greatness. So the first was Atzilut, which is the highest level. The second is Bariah, which is the formation of things. Yetzirah is like even more of a formation, a blossoming of things. And Asiyah, the doing part, which is the lowest world. And we're here in the world of Asiyah, doing. So as the divine energy passes through each of the worlds, it loses some of its infinite qualities and takes on more finite qualities, to the point that the energy can then morph into material and physical creation. So the way that I saw that analogy was by even, God shows us even through biology and through the sacred geometry of life how things work. And if we look at it and we meditate on it, and we meditate on the greatness and the sanctity and the incredible the magnificence of the universe and how it grows and how it's created in all its fractal wisdom, we basically, we get down to the tiniest nitty gritty of things in the DNA and the little, what do you call the deoxyribo threads and the little gene columns that attach to each other. But when a baby is born in the womb, as the embryo forms, it's all one strand of DNA and the XX and the XY chromosome. But as the baby develops into the embryo, different things unlock. So the DNA is already there. You could say it was already there in the sperm and the egg. But what actually forms the baby day by day is its growth into one thing decides to morph into fingers, and one thing is programmed to morph into the brain. And the different blessings come down to us in that way, in that we all contain the DNA of the blessing that was downloaded to us on Rosh Hashanah. But in order to develop each, the wealth, the relationship wealth, the money wealth, the love, the health wealth, there are different forms of blessing. Each day, the way that we show up determines how that wealth is actually formed into the little parts of the body that become our lives. So I don't know if you have any questions on that, but just to finish up by saying, this is just a recap of the last lesson, that every day there's another judgment on whether this energy should materialize into a physical blessing, or will it remain a spiritual blessing because we didn't really channel that part down. So, and also that there is a question over whether that spiritual blessing is locked away for us safely so that we can enjoy it even more so in the world to come. and it's not really due to us in this world. And that's all determined by not only our actions, but by our merits. So with this in mind, we can now appreciate the need for human interaction. When we physically contribute, we are actualizing the spiritual energy into its physical gob. So it's like we're drawing down the water, and the analogy of the well that we used in the last lesson, which is the water comes up from the ground, but in order for it to come in this world to our mouth, we have to, in those days, in 1,000 years ago, this is how it worked. They had to like turn the handle of the well, and the ropes of the well, and the ropes and the levers and the cogs helped the bucket to come up. And in some cases, there wasn't even an animal that had to have the strength of the animal to pull it. So all those steps had to kick into action before. So to draw the water from the well is very much a spiritual analogy to the divine blessing coming down to us, which is compared to water. So that explanation was from a book called Sefer called Derech Mitzvotecha, and the Kuntres of Maya Discourse. Okay, so the bottom line from last lesson was it's your efforts, but it's God's blessings. Okay, so is that okay if I carry on, or is there anything you'd like to add? Or
well, no, it's really good. I do have a question, but maybe after when.
No, fine. You can ask a question.
What came to mind, because for me it's a little mind-boggling, but also I missed the last lesson. What came to mind is like the world of doing, like is this doing mitzvot? But well, no, let me recapitulate the question. What if one is struggling with the world of doing, and is it possible that we're between two worlds if we're struggling with the doing?
Wow, that's such a beautiful question, you know, and I think a lot of us are feeling right now a little bit like that. It's almost as if we're in between. We're really at the very close period. A lot of people are saying that we're sensing that Mashiach is close, the Geula is close, we're moving into another dimension, but yet we're still here in this world. We have to earn a living and all those things, but our mind and our heart are sort of floating away somewhere else, and we're thinking, this cannot be all there is. Look at all the darkness. It's impossible for us to function in it. So there is that struggle. And the analogy that came a couple of weeks ago was that the dark, not a couple of lessons ago, was not a couple of weeks ago, I think it's a week, it's a day, was that the darker it is, the more merit there is to the light that's there. So when we were talking about a businessman who shows up every day and he does all the work and he still prays to God and he believes that God is the one who gives him the blessing, then first of all, he has peace of mind because he knows that he doesn't have to over exert himself. He knows that he shows up, he does what he has to do to the best of his knowledge. He's done the best he can, and his mind can be at rest. He doesn't have to over people please and try and overperform and worry about what that email said. Did I write it wrong? What will people think of him? He doesn't go into the overthinking and over controlling mode because yes, he does his work, he shows up as best he can, and then he knows that God will bless his efforts. And if he doesn't get it, it wasn't meant for him, or maybe it'll come later. So he's not impatient. But there's another further depth of how the businessman with faith shows up in this world, and that is that the prayers of a businessman are considered by Rabbi Bachya to have more merit than somebody who just sits and learns all day, because someone who sits and learns all day is so connected to God that he's in the light, and that his faith and his prayers are very easy for him. He's just very connected with God. But a businessman is so hard, or a businesswoman, it's so hard for us to connect with God because our natural inclination is to say, well, I did that deal, and oh, he screwed up that's thing, and it was his fault, like to start attaching cause and effect and hooking them together when really it was God all the time. So the darkness, it's explained as sort of like a darkness of the material world. When we sink into the darkness and we still see the light, that's a very powerful prayer, and that's a very powerful blessing. So when we liken this darkness that we're in, this generation has really, we've gone through COVID, and we've gone through war, and we're going through a war of our own homeland and our own family, and all around us things are so confusing. And if we can connect even the tiniest spark during this time, that brings so much light. And that is why we're here, and that is why the souls that we have chosen to show up here And it doesn't necessarily have to be a big thing. It's just that connection, that prayer, maybe once a day, 2 times a day, 3 times a day. And that prayer is considered to be extremely powerful. And it says it's a light that's more beautiful and potent than if it had not been preceded by darkness and challenges. And that's from the Likutei Torah. So the light is more beautiful, more potent when it's preceded by darkness and challenges. And the businessman appreciates the limitations of physicality and has a burning desire for the connection to God. And it's about that desire. It's about, I'm in the darkest dark and I want the lightest light.
Wow.
So there's a saying, Libi, I think it was Ramban who said, Libi b'mizrach va'ani b'sof ma'arav. My heart is in the east, but I am in the furthest corners of the west. You know, he's so much pathos because he felt so lost and alone in his galut. And we're in galut, and Hashem wants us to feel that we're in galut so that we cry out for the Geula. So we call out from the darkness. It's so dark. We don't understand. We don't know what to do. And in that not knowing, we admit and surrender to God. But you know, and we just turn to him. So yeah, that's what came to me out of your question, which was very, very resonant with me, by the way.
Yeah. So it is about being in between, and
the being in between, yeah.
The being in the between can be like a call for like there's a reason why it is difficult, because it's the next world calling. So it's okay to be in between.
Yes, and even the darkness, it's not even put there for a reason. It's there because it's naturally there, because we're about to enter a different world. Now, if you imagine how the world works and the light spins, you know, the sun and the moon and the earth rotate. There's a bracha called Hama'ariv Aravim, Golel Or. When we say Ma'ariv, we say Golel, he rolls the darkness away and brings the light. It's like you roll one away and the light comes. And everybody knows that the darkest hour is just before dawn. So it's naturally the most dark before about to evolve into something that's the brightest light. There's always the chaos that precedes creation, as there was in the beginning, in the very beginning. There was all the darkness, choshech al pnei tehom. There's darkness on the face of the depth. Tohu vavohu, there was chaos and confusion. It's just like now. So that's a signal to us that we're almost there. It's like a birth and chaos. If you've ever done 5 rhythms, chaos is the feminine because it's about to birth. Chaos is that messy, bloody, screaming. What's going on? Let it free. Is really, I can't take it anymore. The woman is screaming. She's about to give birth, and then suddenly it's there and she can relax and relieve. But we're not there yet. So we're feeling that dark shadow. But we can take comfort in knowing that we are the light in that shadow and we're about to birth it. So just holding on to that knowledge is the only thing we have.
Yeah, beautiful.
That was deep.
Yeah, that was, well,
that was deep. And the question that you had is my question too. I think it's everybody's question now, and thank you for asking it. So these shiurim, these lessons, these sort of discourses, they're short, and it can just be one thing per week, per day. So I think we could actually leave it there unless you want to continue.
No, and well, I'm so late already, but I do want to prioritize these lessons because I just but yeah, we can leave it there, or we can continue up to you.
It's a deep subject, and I think sometimes to take on too much into your mind and heart in one go doesn't serve anybody. I think it's good to process what we've talked about.
Yeah, I mean, for me, that was like, I'm still like,
yeah, a lot.
You know, there's a lot to.
There's a lot, and also I've done this same lesson maybe 2 or 3 times because different people have gone and weren't up to it. So every time I read it, I see something else in it.
Yeah, it's never complete. That's the power of it.
Yeah. So I don't mind how many times we learn it. And apparently, the Lubavitcher Rebbe said to his one of his Talmidim, like not a student, but one of the men who used to come to him for blessing. He said, "Look, it seems to me that you're just lacking in trust." And he said, "All I can tell you is, if you take this sefer," the Lubavitcher Rebbe said, "and learn it over and over, and I don't mean learn it all at once. I mean learn a little bit daily, and don't think to yourself, oh, you've read it once, you've read it. No, keep going at least 2 or 3 times the whole sefer, then you'll be fine. All you're lacking is in trust. Everything will come to you if you understand this is not just learning for your head. It's like a way of life, and it's a way of manifestation. And through this, you will access all the things you want, and all the things you desire, and all the things you need, if you only understand the laws of emunah, how it works. It's like the secret, the book, The Secret. This is the ultimate secret. This came way before The Secret.
Oh,
it's the code. It's the code of emunah, and how to bring in authenticity and faith and really manifestation into our lives. How to manifest the things we want using emunah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to stop recording, and we can chat if you like. Welcome. Hang on. Oh, I hadn't recorded it. Oh, I have.
Yeah, it was recorded. It's still recording.